So get this, in the span of just 48 hours, the Indian government rolled out a policy that put it in the same league as countries like North Korea and China. And then, just as fast, slammed on the brakes. This is the wild story of a mandatory app, a tech giant that said no, and a government's head-spinning U-turn.
And it all really comes down to this one central question. Why would a government push so hard for something only to backpedal the moment people started shouting about it? Well, as we're about to see, the answer pulls back the curtain on this huge clash between privacy and control.
All right, so let's set the scene. This whole firestorm kicked off because of a directive that was issued super quietly and then very, very publicly reversed.
So here's how it started. The Ministry of Communications sends out this order to all mobile phone makers. The instruction was crystal clear. A new government app, Sanchar Saathi, had to be put on every single new phone sold in India. And here's the real kicker. It was supposed to be baked into the operating system, which means you, the user, could not delete it, ever.
But, secrets like this don't stay secret for long. Once the media got a hold of the story, the backlash was immediate and intense. Within a day or two, facing a ton of pressure, the communications minister gets up and says something completely different. He says, actually, yeah, the user can delete the app. Just like that, it went from mandatory to optional in the blink of an eye.
So what is this app that caused such an enormous fuss? Let's take a look at the government's official line for why this whole thing was so necessary in the first place.
The government's #1 argument was all about public safety. They pitched this as this revolutionary tool to fight crime. And they threw out a big number, claiming the Sanchar Saathi portal had already helped track down and recover over 700,000 stolen mobile phones. And you gotta admit, on the surface, that sounds pretty impressive.
And this is where things started to feel off. On one side, you have the government saying, hey, we're just trying to protect you from thieves, scammers, and spam calls. But critics immediately shot back with a really simple question. If this app is so helpful and so effective, why do you need to force it on everyone? Why not just let people choose to download it if they want to?
And that one question, well, that opened the floodgates. The conversation completely shifted. Suddenly, we weren't talking about its features anymore, we were talking about something much, much scarier, the potential for mass surveillance.
The criticism from political opponents was absolutely brutal. One opposition leader, Karti Chidambaram, didn't pull any punches. He called it Pegasus++, which is a direct and very loaded reference to that infamous spyware.
And it didn't stop there. Another opposition leader, Priyanka Chaturvedi, called it a big boss surveillance moment. Like the reality show where you're being watched 24/7. Both of these comparisons are getting at the exact same fear, that this was never really about stolen phones. It was about state-sponsored snooping.
And look, these fears weren't just coming out of nowhere. When people actually looked into the app's permissions, the list was, well, it was a lot. It could apparently get into your photos, your call records, your memory card, pretty much access all of your phone's features. It could even, and I'm not making this up, control your phone's flashlight. Why? Who knows? Now, for anyone who's not familiar, Pegasus is this incredibly powerful spyware that governments have allegedly used to secretly hack the phones of journalists, activists, you name it. So the point critics were making was huge. Pegasus was used in the shadows, but with Sanchar Saathi, it was like they were proposing to do the same kind of surveillance, only this time right out in the open, with an app you couldn't even get rid of. So the public and political noise was getting pretty loud. But the real tipping point, the thing that may have forced the government's hand, well, according to sources, it came from a single, very powerful tech giant, Apple.
According to media reports, Apple, a company whose entire brand is practically built on protecting user privacy, just flat out refused to go along with it. They apparently told the government, nope, we are not pre-installing an undeletable government app on our iPhones.
Now you might be thinking, wait, Apple only has about a 5% market share in India. How much leverage could they possibly have? And that's a fair question. But it's not about the market share, it's about the symbolism. Apple is a massive poster child for the government's Make in India initiative. The headline, Apple pulls back from India, would be a PR nightmare they probably just couldn't risk.
So let's zoom out for a second, because for critics, this whole thing isn't just an isolated incident. They see it as the latest move in a much larger and more troubling trend. It's all about connecting the dots.
Critics point to a clear sequence of events. First, you have the weakening of the Right to Information Act, which makes it harder to ask the government tough questions. Then comes the new data protection law, which just happens to have huge exemptions for the government itself. And of course, there's Aadhaar, the biometric ID system that started as totally optional and is now basically essential for daily life. In that context, Sanchar Saathi doesn't look like a surprise at all. It looks like the next logical step.
And when you step back and look at the global picture, the company India was keeping here is eliminating. Forcing citizens to have mandatory, pre-installed government apps on their phones is a tactic you see in places like North Korea, China, and Russia, not typically the playbook of a democracy.
So, after all of that, the secret order, the public fury, the sudden U-turn, the whole shebang, what's the crucial thing to take away from this story?
It really boils down to this classic fundamental conflict of our modern world. On one side, you have the government saying it has a duty to provide security and stop crime. And on the other, you have the citizens' fundamental right to privacy and the freedom to not be watched all the time. This whole Sanchar Saathi affair just threw that tension right into the spotlight.
And that really leaves us with a final question. And it's not just for the government, it's for every single one of us. In our digital lives, we are constantly trading a little bit of privacy for a little bit of convenience. This story forces us to ask ourselves, where do we personally draw the line between a tool that helps us and a tool that watches us?